Hi there. I'm Amy Bulware, and this is,
Irv Ginsburg, Papa Irv.
and we are doing our third segment of Ask Papa. We decided that this would be a great way for us to find out stories that Papa has and kind of do that connection with our friends and family who are out of town and maybe haven't had the opportunity to hear these stories, and some of them who have, but just like to hear them again. So we left off on our last segment. Oh, wait a minute. I have to tell you. Dad and I are dressed matching today because we got word from one of our faithful viewers, my sister Joy, and my niece Sammy, that we were a little clashy last time, that our outfits didn't match well. So we, in fact, video chatted with my sister and her family before we came on to do this to make sure that we looked cute and matchy. You'll notice that Papa is wearing a World Series Cubs shirt, and that is part of our theme tonight, is his meeting and marrying my mom and becoming a lifelong Cubs fan, because that's what she was. So anyway, we're going to get started with our first question, and that is about the first time that Dad met my grandparents. So Dad, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. Oh gosh, it was really exciting and very nerve-wracking. I was still in graduate school and we had been dating, but we hadn't decided yet to get married. But Nada invited me out over the Christmas holiday to come and stay with her folks and her in their home in Glencoe. And so I had never met her parents. And I said, and she told me that her dad, Hess, was going to pick me up at Midway Airport in Chicago. So we did. But how was I going to recognize who it was that I was looking for? And she was very clear. She said, I look just like my dad. So here I am at Midway looking for somebody that has blonde, long hair and dressed in a skirt. But I didn't have to look very far.
By the way, I never thought my mother looked anything like my father.
No, and I never did after that.
I don't know why she would have said that. But anyway, so Dad, as you're telling them this story, can you describe the difference between where you lived in the Bronx and where she lived in Glencoe, Illinois?
Oh, of course. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in the Bronx in University Heights. And I used to describe it, I would call it, we lived in a tenement. And Dana used to get very upset when I used the word tenement because she thought tenement was a rundown building. But it was a very nice building. In fact, we even had an elevator in the building, so you didn't have to walk up any steps. Okay, now I come out to Glencoe, and Nada did not come to the airport to pick me up. It was just with her dad. Well, the conversation in the car on the way home was really tough. I was really nervous, and I was afraid that I was going to be carrying change in my pocket, and I was afraid that if I did, it would be shaking and making all kinds of noise. Well, we get up to Glencoe, and Nada's mom was not very excited about the fact that Nada was bringing somebody from New York. The way she described it to one of her relatives, there was an Ausländer coming, somebody from outside the realm that she thought that Nada should be dating. And as you can hear, I'm a New Yorker and talk pretty fast. Okay, I come up there, and the house that I drove up to with her dad, in my view, was an absolute mansion. It was 4 or 5 bedrooms, a large dining room, a large living room, a large den, a basement.
No, the den wasn't that big.
It was to me. It was. It may not have been to you, but I mean, we
was a
didn't have
big
it then. We
house.
had 2 bedrooms, a living room, and a kitchen, and that was it, and a hallway. So this was really, it was a magnificent home. I still think it's a
Yeah,
magnificent
it
home.
really is. It was a beautiful home.
With a big fireplace and
A
furnished
sunken living room. I mean, he must have gone crazy.
and furnished to beat the band. Okay, now where am I going to be sleeping? Nada's brother was 13 at the time, and Nada had her own bedroom, and then her folks had a bedroom. There was a 4th bedroom, but then there was a 5th bedroom, and I was assigned the 5th bedroom. And it was a room that apparently had been built for a servant over the garage and no heat. And this was in December. And as you heard earlier, it gets cold in Chicago, it gets cold in the Midwest, like nothing I had ever seen. Well, and I was going to be there for 4 or 5 days. Well, they really made me feel at home. But I found out later that Nada's mom told her that if she decides to get married to me, that before she did that, they would offer her a trip to Europe.
Kind of a bribe not to marry him.
Not to get married. Now they had just met me, and I got to meet a lot of Nada's friends at the time, and also some friends of her folks. And it was really a stressful 3 or 4 days, and then I went back home, and then I went back to the university, and I finished up at the university. And then we were dating, and we decided to get married, but we hadn't talked to her parents. And I had taken a job in Chicago at Argonne National Laboratory, and I was living in Hyde Park. And we decided that we were going to go ahead and get married, but that I had to go up and talk to her parents. Well, you talk about a difficult trip. By that time, I had been living in Chicago, and I had a car, and I drove up to Glencoe, and I was as nervous as all get out. And I can't remember much, but the evening was full of tension, but it relaxed as the evening transpired. And by that time, Nada had already talked to her parents, and she told them that this was the guy that she was going to get married to. And I often wondered why she was willing to. She was 19 years old. So now, in retrospect, I can understand her mother's reluctance to okay us getting married.
Honestly, he probably would have waited. She could have taken the trip to Europe and married him, but she didn't do it.
What she said was, and she told this to her mother after we decided to get married, that we will. She said, the offer for the trip is still on the table, and she told her mom that when we could afford it, we would go together, and that that wasn't going to stop us from getting married. And boy, I'm sure glad that happened, because we have 3 phenomenal kids and 4 grandchildren that just bring all kinds of light to the world. And
and you ended up getting along well with them after.
Oh, it turned out it could not have been better. We always maintained a very close relationship, even when we moved from Chicago to Tulsa. Nada was really concerned about how her folks would react, and she talked first to her father, and he said to her, "Nada, you have a family, and it will be the best move that you could ever make." And it turned out to be a pretty good move. We became Okies.
But Great wasn't. Mom wasn't happy about that.
But we used to talk to Great, to Libby every day. It was fine. And I used to get into Chicago at least once a month, and so I would always, we would always have at least one dinner or more